So let's talk money trauma. Yeah, it's an actual thing, and it's probably nipping at more of us than we'd care to imagine. If, for example, you grew up in a household where money was a real source of conflict, or being told that you're just not good with money, perhaps you have earned really well in your career, but are finding that you have very little to show for it. Or perhaps even just the thought of planning ahead for your future fills you with dread, right? These experiences create our belief system and can lead to patterns such as overspending, undersaving, not taking enough risk, not planning for the future, all of these things. And these experiences create our belief system, now what we perceive to be safe. And these create our thoughts create our emotions, and our emotions go on to infer how we behave. So we may think that to be better with money, it can be solved with budgeting or just creating a financial plan. But these are simply not, this is not a money problem. They are not simply a math problem or a numbers problem. If you want to save more money, make more money, invest more money, this episode is for you guys. So let's dive into what is money trauma. So money trauma, otherwise known as financial trauma, is essentially the emotional and the psychological wounds that arise from past money-related experiences, often when we lack the tools or the actual nervous system capacity to process them. And trauma occurs when something happens that overwhelms our body's capacity to cope, which is disrupting our emotional functioning, right? So these events don't even have to be life-threatening. They don't have to be big traumatic experiences. They can very often be ego-threatening, which make us feel completely helpless in our circumstances. So money trauma can manifest in so many different ways, including anxiety, fears of shame or guilt around having money, and even physical illness. You know, these deep-seated emotions can really limit our ability to thrive financially, causing patterns of overspending, under-earning, or overgiving. And trauma is literally just a disruption to our nervous system. So how do we first of all recognize or discover that we have these traumas around money? The way that we discover this is through pattern recognition. And essentially what happens is that the brain does a fantastic job at perceiving that in order to feel safe, we should be the people pleaser. And so anyone who's experienced trauma will people please in order to feel safe. Or maybe they'll say yes to too many things. Maybe we avoid financial conflict in relationships. Maybe we avoid giving to our own needs and giving to other people first, or giving away our time. All of these things, they're trauma responses. Okay. And this can show up in so many different ways. And essentially it all comes back to money just not feeling safe. But money is not the trauma. It's what our perception of what money means that creates this trauma in our minds and in our bodies. And this is why financial education alone just isn't going to heal this, right? It's not going to solve the issue. We have to work through the emotional roots in order to break through some of these self-sabotaging behaviors, right? So when we think about how do we discover if we have traumas, I think most of us have money traumas. I would even argue that we all have money traumas, right? We all have had situations where our nervous system doesn't feel safe. And so we get into these trauma loops, these patterns, which are not supporting our needs. So what is the psychological impact of these money traumas? Well, if you think about it, the psychological impact of money trauma is that money trauma can really deeply affect how we think, how we feel, and how we behave with our finances. And it goes way beyond just being stressed with money. Money trauma is rooted in those negative experiences or those beliefs about money that shape our entire emotional and psychological responses. And these responses often show up in our subconscious ways. So they influence how we feel about ourselves, how we make financial decisions, how we make decisions in life. So here are some of the key psychological impacts of money trauma. The first one is negative beliefs and self-worth. So money trauma often leads to these limiting beliefs about ourselves, like I don't deserve money, or if I have too much, it will be taken away. If I have too much money, people won't like me as much. Or maybe the opposite, like I have to have lots of money for people to like me, right? That's often a big one. And these beliefs can stem from past experiences, like growing up in a household where money was a consistent source of stress or lack or financial instability. And so as a result, us as young human beings often will take on the experience through our belief system. And this can then lead to undervaluing ourselves, not charging enough for our work, or just feeling really guilty about having financial success. So the common things that you might say to yourself are things like, oh, just, money's not for me, it's for other people. Or, like, oh, money's just for, people who are rich and greedy. And, and it's everything's magnified. Like if your belief is that rich people are greedy, it's not because rich people are greedy. They were greedy anyway. It's just that money magnifies those qualities. You might say, well, I'm not good enough to have that amount of money, so I'm going to limit myself. And we talk about this in our language, and I'm going to come on to share more about this in a moment. And we have these real emotional responses. So money trauma, it triggers some of the strongest emotional reactions: fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, judgment. All of these emotions can overwhelm our ability to make rational decisions. And the brain is being emotionally flooded in response to these money stresses. And that's what keeps us feeling stuck. So that's one of the first indicators, really, is the psychological impact is on our negativity and how we feel about our sense of self. The other way this shows up is through like self-sabotaging. And I'm laughing clearly because I have had experience of this myself. These self-sabotaging patterns like overspending, under-earning, overgiving, they often trace back to money trauma. And these behaviors are a way to try and cope with these deep emotional wounds that we have around money. So, for example, somebody with money trauma may feel really uncomfortable with financial success and unwillingly or unknowingly sabotaging it through poor financial decisions, which then just reinforces their beliefs that they can't handle money, they can't handle wealth. I see this a lot in my work, where there's a lot of women who have a lot of financial success and they self-sabotage by making lots of money, and they can't keep hold of it because of what that money represents. So that's a really, really big one. The other big one I see is people pleasing and boundary issues, ladies. So money trauma can cause a really strong desire to please others because we want to avoid financial conflict. We don't like talking about money. We don't like asking people for money. We don't like chasing invoices. We don't like to have those financial conversations, so we just avoid them. That may mean that you are undercharging for your services or paying for others when actually it's not really financially viable for you to do that, or failing to set financial boundaries, perhaps with friends. Actually, I can't afford to go on that holiday that you want to go on. It's like setting those boundaries. These behaviors really stem back from this need to feel loved and to feel safe rather than having this healthy relationship with money. The other area that I see this come up with is this real disconnection from the present. So what money trauma can do is it can often keep people focused on past financial failures, or it keeps us stuck in future anxieties. Just think about that for a moment. Anxiety is about fear of something that hasn't happened, and failures or fears are about the past. And we get stuck in this place between fear and anxiety, and it disconnects us from the present moment. And this creates cycles of worry, avoidance, it prevents us from making really empowered financial decisions, and it blocks our opportunity for growth by being stuck in anxiety of the future, something that hasn't even happened, worrying about, oh, I haven't saved enough for my retirement, or being stuck in the past of decisions I've already made, experiences that have already happened. So by understanding the psychological impact of money trauma, we can really start to heal those wounds, shift our beliefs, and create a healthier, more abundant relationship with money. So How do we heal from money trauma? Firstly, I want to change the narrative here. It is not about healing. It is about detaching, because the truth is the trauma has already happened. We can't change the past. And we don't want to get stuck in a trauma loop or a healing loop. We want you to detach the emotions and the trauma that sit in your body so that the body and the mind can both feel safe to receive, hold, and spend money. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to do, is to shift the language. It's not just about healing, it's about detaching. How do we detach? We detach away from the trauma by increasing self-awareness and regulating our nervous system, because trauma lives in the body. And so the most powerful way is to detach from that trauma in the body, right? We want to detach from the emotional flooding, the state where overwhelm exists, the state where overwhelming emotions like fear and anxiety sit, so that rather than taking over, we can become aware of them and we can start to act more rationally. Because emotional flooding occurs when our brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thinking, goes completely offline. And then we go into more reactive, survival orientated parts, right? Leaves us stuck in those cycles of panic and avoidance. And so when this happens, it's almost impossible to make sound financial decisions or approach money with any kind of clarity. So in order to break free from this emotional flooding, we have to practice these kind of sensory awareness. It's a really simple yet powerful way to regulate your nervous system. I'm going to reference a previous episode I recorded on how to regulate your nervous system. So check out the show notes for that link. So grounding yourself in the present by tuning into your body really helps you to just shift out of that reactive state, right? And back into a place of calm and re-regulation, where your thinking mind can then re-engage. So how do we do this? Well, we start by just noticing. Notice how your body reacts when you talk about money. You know, when you're overwhelmed or anxious about money, ask yourself, where am I feeling this? And what am I feeling? Is it a tightness in the chest? Is it a knot in the stomach? Is it a lump in the throat? Like, those physical sensations are cues that your nervous system is dysregulated. It's basically signaling to you that you're operating in a stress response. And so once you can identify where that stress is in your body, you can start to calm the nervous system and ground yourself through your senses. So in your vision, for example, in what you see, notice, like, what do you see around you? Maybe a nice calming image, the sky, the plants. What is it that you notice? And then bring that in through sound. What do you hear? Maybe tune into some relaxing music or listen to the birds. You know, they're auditory anchors. These auditory anchors can really help bring you back to the present moment. And then think about touch. How does your body feel? You know, gently put your hands on that place of your body. Put your feet firmly on the ground and just really feel connected into your surroundings. And then finally, through your breath, you know, taking that kind of really deep rhythmic breathing is another really vital tool that you can utilize. And the great thing about all of these things is they're free. It costs no money, right? So inhale for 3, hold for 3, and then exhale for 3, right? It just really helps to slow the heart, calms the nervous system down. And by focusing on all of those senses, you start to bring your brain and your body back into alignment. And this process helps bring the prefrontal cortex, where we make decisions, back online. This allows you to think clearly and make really good financial choices. And developing this real level of self-awareness is not only going to help you to manage money, but it's going to help you to strengthen your ability to navigate complex decisions in your life with much more resilience. Because when your nervous system is regulated, you're better equipped to make better decisions, not just with money. So create a self-awareness practice. Check in with your body during those stressful financial situations, whether it's paying a bill or investing in a program or investing in the stock market, you know, whatever that may be. And just pause for a moment and notice how the body feels. So that's the first tip. The second tip I want to share with you is another really powerful way to shift out of this place of money trauma, right? And it's changing your language. The language that you use when talking about money has a direct impact on your mindset and your financial outcomes. Many of us are unknowingly reinforcing scarcity by using words like little or just or only. So for example, phrases like, I only have a little bit of money saved, or I just want to make £5,000 this month. It keeps you locked in a mindset of limitation. And these words literally signal to your brain that there's not enough. And over time, this becomes a recycling pattern of scarcity. So interesting, right? So instead, replace these words with expansive language. Rather than saying, I only saved £500 today, or I only saved £50 today, I am consistently growing my money. Yeah, this is a real slight shift, but it makes that tone much more abundant. And this language is going to shape your reality. When you start speaking in a way that directly reflects possibility and growth, your brain is going to begin to believe it. And over time, this practice is going to rewire your unconscious to align with abundance, align with expansion, and really open you up to more financial flow. So pay attention to how you talk about money in your daily conversations. Catch yourself when you use those words that limit your ability to make more money and hold more money and save more money, and reframe those phrases. Third and final tip then is journaling, right? Another way to start to begin your relationship with healing around money traumas is journaling. And journaling is a really powerful tool for self-reflection, especially when it comes to exploring your deep-rooted stories with money. Many of the patterns and the emotions that we experience in relation to money are often unconscious. They're things that we haven't even really thought about. I was literally sharing a story the other day at a conference I was attending about my relationship between love and money, and how my belief was that in order to be loved, you had to give to everybody else's needs. And so anytime I made money, I would just give it away, or I would find something to spend it on, because I didn't believe that you could have love and money. And when I was sharing the story, the lady next to me was like, the following day, she was like, oh my God, I realized that I also have this connection between love and money. And then we started talking about her early stories around it. And it was so interesting. It was so interesting how we shared such similar experiences and how that manifested itself through our behaviors. And these beliefs can really significantly impact your financial behavior, your self-worth, and your ability to build wealth. Right? I'm sure this is why you're listening to this. You want to build wealth because you want to have a better life. You want to help other people. And if we're not consciously aware of some of these stories, they're always going to hold us back. So journaling really allows us to bring them to the surface, offers a really safe space, because it's just with yourself, to explore these stories without any judgment. So start by writing about your earliest memories of money. What messages did you receive about money growing up? What conversations happened in the household? Was money a topic that was even discussed in the household? If it wasn't, what does that tell you? Money has to be kept secret, or conversations can only happen with men, like, what did that teach you about money? And reflecting on those early experiences can just reveal some of those origin stories. And those origin stories can go on to create and internalize our belief system that maybe there's not enough. It's going to run out. That's why we have to hoard it and keep hold of money and not spend it. Yeah. So it's a really, really great way of being able to just check in with yourself around your relationship with money. And journaling about the feelings can really help you to understand what triggers them, and then how they influence your financial decisions. And now the way that journaling works is it taps into the unconscious mind. It helps to bypass the logical, rational part of the brain and really gets to the root of the emotions and the beliefs. So by continuously writing without, don't overthink it. Like, just give yourself permission to access your thoughts and your feelings. There's a fabulous book called The Artist's Way by Julie Cameron, I think it is. The Artist's Way. It's a fabulous book that really helps you to learn how to journal. So I would definitely start with that book if you haven't read it, and just see what you can recognize, see what patterns, see what conflicts can arise. And by uncovering those limiting beliefs, you can then create the space for new empowering money stories. Yeah, once you've identified something, like I'm not worthy of wealth, you can challenge it through your writing. Where did this belief come from? How has it shaped my life? Is it actually true? Yeah, this process of questioning, reframing, and releasing those stories can help you to make space for new ones. So that's my final piece of homework for you today, ladies. Get journaling. Try it as a regular practice. Set aside some time each morning or in the evening or at lunchtime, and just take that time to get yourself into that kind of semi-dream state, which is why first thing in the morning is really good if you can. Like as soon as you wake up in the morning, that semi-dream state is the best time to journal. That's what Julia Cameron talks about in her book. But if that doesn't work for you, don't worry. Just simply start writing. Don't worry too much about it. Don't try and get things perfect. And even if you can just uncover one story that links into one belief about money, that links into one belief about yourself, it's a really good start. So start with prompts like, what are my first memories of money? How did my parents handle money? How did this affect me? What are my biggest fears around money? That's a really good one. Or what is my relationship with money today? If I had to describe it like it was a friendship, how would I describe that friendship? Am I ignoring it a lot? Am I paying it lots of attention? And what do you want your relationship to look like? If you were at peace with money and money was just a tool, how would you behave with money? So maybe explore some of those questions to help you to gain some clarity on your emotional relationship with money and start to rewrite that financial story with yourself. It can really, really allow yourself to just have that space and that grace to start to heal and start to detach through the body work with our relationship with money. So there you are, lovely ladies. We've unpacked the emotional and the psychological impact of money trauma and explored some really powerful tools for you to start healing and detaching. And remember, money isn't just about the numbers. It's so deeply tied into our self-worth, our emotions, and even our relationships. So by shifting our mindset and becoming more aware of how our bodies respond and using tools like journaling, we can start to transform our relationship with money. And it's all about empowering you to feel confident, secure, and at peace with your money. So it doesn't matter where you're starting from. It doesn't matter whether you've got hundreds of thousands in the bank or a pound in the bank, right? It doesn't matter. So I would absolutely love to hear from you. What resonated with you today? What are your next steps for healing your relationship with money? Feel free to drop me a message on any of my social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, any of those things, or drop me an email, hello@catherinemorgan.com. I personally respond to all of my emails that come in from the podcast. And if you have enjoyed this episode, I would absolutely love it if you can hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you are listening on. It really helps us to get this work into and out into more places. So please hit the subscribe button and I will see you again on the show next week. Take care, guys.